So, I will be explaining the difference between low and high context cultures in terms of various body languages or nonverbal cues. For example, eye contact in high context cultures like Asia and Africa, when you avoid eye contact with another person, it is considered as a sign of respect. However, in the North American part of the world, um, you have to maintain an eye contact to represent that you are maintaining an equality in the workplace or in a business setting. And for touch in Asia, a high context culture, it is not common to touch others because people, the use of left hand for giving or receiving something is also considered offensive. This also is based on certain cultures. So in low context cultures, they have a completely different perspective towards touch. They feel that touch is imperative to express their feelings and um, build a connection with the other person. So for physical space, high context societies, the personal space is given not given a lot of value, whereas in the low context, personal space is given value. And in terms of respect by authority, high context cultures, they have a more hierarchical structure in the workplaces, and respect is given by the means of the position of the authority. Whereas in the low context culture, there is the respect is not based on your position of authority. Rather, the workplaces are considered equal no matter what position you're at. And in terms of gestures, the term okay has different connotations in high culture society. For example, in Japan, okay sign means money, and in Eastern Europe, okay can be very offensive for the interpreter. In low context cultures, words are valued more. So therefore, people are very blunt or very straightforward with what they're wanting to say. So most of the times they mean what they say, but in high context, you kind of have to decipher what the other person is trying.
Thank you, Sahej. Now I'll explain you what actually a cultural difference is. As we know that globalization is increasing and world is now more multicultural than ever. Cultural differences, we can define them as the differences between the beliefs, the behaviors, the expressions, languages, or even in the food preferences or any other difference in their practices or anything which are considered unique to members of a specific ethnicity, race, or national origin. So, how these cultural differences actually affect teamwork? While we know that most of the teams in the world now, be it in the universities or be it in the offices, teams include members of different cultures, teams are multicultural everywhere. So, when we talk about teamwork, cultural differences highly impact teamwork in many ways. But here are only four ways which I'm explaining to you, but there are many more ways. The first one is direct versus indirect communication. Uh, Direct communication is like saying simply or explicitly your point, while indirect communication is not saying directly whatever you are thinking. Instead, the people who use indirect communication, which are mostly high context culture people, they use gestures, they use their body language, and sometimes uh, their tone to communicate their true meaning. But it can be frustrating to the people who speak directly or who prefer direct communication. Mostly Western cultures use direct communication. The next is trouble with accents and fluency. So it's a very common point. We all are coming from different cultures and settling down here. So we all have troubles in accents and our fluency as well. Sometimes in class also we do not understand some points because of the accents, and we might lose some of very useful information because of that, and which can be frustrating to us as well. The next is differing attitudes towards hierarchy. Now, this is another one big point when it comes to teamwork, because in offices, in workplaces, people who are coming from hierarchical structures, especially from higher posts, they literally find it very difficult and uncomfortable to settle in an environment with egalitarian culture or a flat culture, flat structure. It's very uncomfortable for them to settle down there, and because of which their behavior might sometimes seem inappropriate, and which can ultimately damage their stature. So yeah, it's one another big point. The next is conflicting decision making norms. For example, in Western cultures, uh, people find themselves very much empowered, so they can take decisions like quickly and tell their team members that yes, that's what I have decided. But others, some for example immigrants or some Eastern cultures, they might uh, dig the data first, consult their team members, and then they make the decision. They take their time and then make their decisions. And because of this difference in both the decision making norms, uh, that can as well be frustrating for the people who take decisions quickly. So yeah, that's it. When we talk about fluencies and languages, I'll say that language is one of the most important part of communication, but there are other gestures, other non-verbal cues which are crucial as well. Just like, for example, Americans are taught to, have a eye contact while they're talking, but it is very inappropriate in Arabic cultures where they find it aggressive. So there are certain differences in the culture which affects teamwork, and after that, there are many more examples which will be further explained by my team members. Thank you.
So now I would like to explain some of the examples of the cultural differences amongst the different countries. I would like to take the example of America and Japan. Japanese thinks that the Americans are Japanese think that Americans are not egalitarian. That means they do not follow the principles, or they are autocratic, authoritarian. While as the Americans consider that the Japanese are very hierarchical in their managing and their operations, and also they are very egalitarian. That is, they follow the every principle, and also they consider that everyone should have an equal right. Also, the another difference which is we have discussed is that Americans have explicit communicators, but they are in the middle of the spectrum when it comes to giving negative feedback. Israelis, Russians, and Dutch are amongst the most direct when it comes to negative feedback, whereas the Japanese in this context are the most opposite one. They are the most indirect in giving the negative feedback. Lastly, in Denmark, we understood that the managing director is the one who is just two levels above in the hierarchy from a janitor. That's great. This represents one extreme attitudes amongst towards the leadership. On the other side, we also saw that in Japan and Korea, the ideal bosses should stand far above the workers at the top of the hierarchy. So they follow a big and a long hierarchical system. Giving it to my next presenter.
So basically, there are many ways to deal with cultural differences in your team, but some of the major them are: firstly, respect and embrace differences. Whether the differences type of culture, political opinion, or background, all these factors can change how person interact with each other. When team members are diverse, it will help. It will not only open teammates to open up with the new ideas, but respect their differences among each other and create whole new work style. The second one is be aware of different work styles. No two people can work the same way. So any team will need time to adjust to one another and learn what makes the other team member work so hard. When you know how they function, people can work in a sync. Third is know your team members' cultural background. It can be hard to know your team members personally, but understanding a person's cultural background can make them feel more comfortable and in understanding why they do some things in their way. Last but not the least, dealing with stereotypes. Stereotypes can ruin any team's bond. Knowledge and understanding are the only tools we can use to deal with stereotypes. Through observations and interactions, the chances of anyone creating or following stereotypes decreases, and employers will be able to focus on the task and work as a team more efficiently.
So this is all from our side, and I hope that all our slides would help you understand the cultural differences in a team and give you the best possible ways of dealing with any kind of cultural conflicts and dealing with the cultural differences in a proactive manner to ensure the success of the organization. Thank you so much.